What if everything you knew about the perfect love story was a beautiful, carefully constructed myth? For decades, we've watched them, Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos, the king and queen of daytime television, the couple whose playful banter and smoldering glances sold us all on a fairy tale. Their love seemed as constant as the sunrise, a beacon of hope in a world of crumbling relationships. But what happens when the camera stops rolling? When the bright lights of the studio dim, and all that's left is the quiet and the weight of a lifetime shared. Kelly Ripa, the woman who taught America to start its day with a smile, is finally ready to pull back the curtain. She's breaking her long silence, not with anger, but with a raw, breathtaking honesty that will change the way you think about love, commitment, and the secret battles fought behind a closed door. People see the finish line. They see the trophy. They never see the bloody knees from the marathon. This is not a story of a scandal. This is the story of a salvation. A story of how a love that looked, from the outside, like it was forged in heaven, was actually tempered in the fires of hell. And it begins not on a soundstage, but in a tiny, cramped New York City apartment, where two young actors were about to learn that the first chapter of a great romance is often the easiest and the most deceptive. The year was 1996. She was the vibrant, rising star of All My Children. He was the devastatingly handsome new guy, the one who made her heart skip a beat the moment he walked into the room. Their courtship was a whirlwind, a passionate secret kept from their co-stars. It was all adrenaline and electricity. A spontaneous Las Vegas wedding that felt less like a decision and more like a destiny. They were building a fantasy, brick by beautiful brick. But what they didn't know was that the foundation was about to be shaken by a force more powerful than either of them, a force that would threaten to tear them apart before they even truly began. And it wasn't another person. It was the ghost of the people they were raised to be. Every marriage is a merger, but for Kelly and Mark, it was a collision of two vibrant, loud, and deeply entrenched cultures. Kelly, the product of a close-knit New Jersey family, where certain roles were expected. Mark, carrying the pride and traditions of a Spanish-speaking household. In the beginning, these differences were part of the attraction. The exotic food, the new music, the passionate family dynamics. It was exciting. But soon, the fairy tale haze lifted, and the ghosts of their upbringing moved in. They weren't just Mark and Kelly anymore. They were representatives of generations of expectations. How do you raise the children? What holidays do you prioritize? Whose family gets the precious limited time? These weren't simple discussions. They were negotiations on the very fabric of their identity. You think you're marrying a person. You don't realize you're marrying their entire history, their mother's recipes, their father's stubbornness. It all comes to live with you, and sometimes it feels like there are too many people in the room. The argument started, not the dramatic, plate-throwing fights of movies, but the quiet, corrosive ones, the silent treatments that could last for days, the feeling of being utterly alone even when you're sitting right next to the person you love most. Mark, by his own admission, could retreat into a fortress of silence. Kelly, the communicator, felt shut out. The very traits that drew them together were now the wedges driving them apart. They were standing on a precipice, looking into a chasm of misunderstanding. The world saw a power couple. Behind closed doors, they were two scared kids wondering if the greatest gamble of their lives was about to end in a devastating loss. The passion that once defined them was cooling, replaced by a polite and terrifying distance. And just when they thought they had navigated the ghosts of their past, a new, more public challenge was about to test them in ways they never imagined. Because the world was watching, and the world loves nothing more than to watch a kingdom fall. If the first test of their marriage was internal, the next was a global spectacle. As Kelly's star exploded on Live, the pressure cooker of fame reached a boiling point. The departure of Regis Philbin was a seismic event in television, and suddenly, Kelly wasn't just half of a duo, she was the anchor, the captain of a multi-million-dollar ship. The scrutiny was relentless. The search for a new co-host became a national obsession, and every day brought a new headline, a new critique, a new wave of pressure. At home, the dynamic was shifting. Mark's career was thriving, but the public narrative often unfairly painted him as Mr. Kelly Ripa. It's a delicate thing for any man, but for a man raised with a strong sense of pride and identity, it was an invisible battle. Meanwhile, Kelly was shouldering the immense weight of a television institution, coming home exhausted, her emotional reserves completely spent. It's not always easy. You have to check your ego at the door, but you do it because you're a team. They were a team, but they were playing on different fields. She was in a very public war for her professional life. He was in a private war for his identity within their partnership. The distance between them grew. Date nights were replaced with business meetings. Quiet moments were filled with the unspoken stress of their new reality. They were drifting, two ships in a storm, close enough to see each other, but too battered to throw a lifeline. There were times I'd look at him across the room and think, "Who are you, and what have we done?" The love was there, buried under layers of life, but I didn't know how to reach it anymore. I didn't know if he wanted me to. It was the darkest hour of their marriage, the point where many couples quietly give up, where the pain of staying outweighs the fear of leaving. They had wealth, they had fame, they had 3 beautiful children, but they had lost the we. The connection that started it all felt like a phantom limb, a memory of a sensation they could no longer feel. And it was in that profound silence, in that utter despair, that a shocking, almost unthinkable decision was made. A decision that would either save them or shatter them completely. They didn't go to a lavish therapist's office. They didn't have a dramatic, tear-filled confrontation. Their salvation began with a simple, terrifying agreement. To stop. To just stop. They carved out a weekend, just the two of them. No kids, no agents, no phones. No distractions from the crumbling monument of their marriage. The first day was filled with a heavy, almost unbearable silence. They walked on the beach, they ate meals, and they said nothing. They had to let the noise of the world fade away before they could even hope to hear each other again. And then they started to talk, not about logistics or schedules or work. They talked about that tiny apartment in New York. They talked about the slice of pizza. They talked about the 2 kids who were so crazy in love they drove to Vegas on a whim. They excavated their own history, digging for the treasure they had buried under years of resentment and routine. We had to remember why. It sounds so simple, but it's the hardest thing in the world when you're lost. We weren't Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos' TV couple. We were Mark and Kelly, the 2 people who started with nothing but a crazy dream and each other. In that space, a monumental shift occurred. They realized their marriage wasn't a fortress to be defended, but a living, breathing thing that needed to be nurtured. It was a raft, and they were the only 2 people on it. If one started drilling holes out of anger or neglect, they would both sink. The choice was stark and simple. Pick up the drill or pick up the paddle. Start rowing together. This was their great reckoning. It wasn't about fixing each other. It was about choosing each other, again and again and again. They made a pact of radical honesty, a promise to never let the silence build for so long again. They decided that their marriage was more important than their individual careers, their individual pride, their individual pain. And from the ashes of that painful weekend, a new love was born. Not the frantic, passionate love of their youth, but a deeper, more resilient love. A love forged in survival. A love that had looked into the abyss and decided to build a bridge across it. And the final, most beautiful surprise was yet to be revealed. A secret weapon they never knew they had. One that would not only save their marriage, but would launch them into a thrilling, unprecedented new chapter that would stun the world. The world thought it was watching a reunion. What it was actually witnessing was a revolution. When Mark Consuelos finally walked onto that couch, not as a guest, but as a permanent co-host, it wasn't just a career move. It was the ultimate symbol of their victory. It was their raft, brought right onto the national stage. After nearly 3 decades of marriage, they had done the impossible. They had not just stayed together, they had chosen to build a new dream, together, in front of everyone. They integrated their lives completely, turning their partnership into a 24/7 adventure. The very thing that almost broke them, the blurring of personal and professional, became their greatest strength. Going to work with your best friend, it's a fantasy. It's our secret. We get to have this incredible shared experience every single day. This is the painful, beautiful, and ultimately inspirational truth Kelly Ripa wants to share. Their marriage isn't perfect because it